That's a cut for.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone? Wow. Skipped myself. Okay, let's do it again. Good evening, everyone. How is everyone feeling?
Yeah.
Good. I like that. I like that energy. So welcome to our first BizTalk event for 2026. Thank you so much for being here. Give yourself a round of applause. So let's do a quick icebreaker. On a scale of 1 to 10, how's business going right now? 1 is bad, 10 is good. 12? 12? Jeez, I need to get some advice from you. Someone said 2, you're in the right place. Definitely. 1. 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's good. So today we're going to be chatting about building businesses that adapt to a change and building resilience. So if your business is kind of in the 5, 6, 7, you're definitely in the right place. But before we kick off, I was told to mention that Business Day are doing an incredible giveaway of 50,000 rands to one lucky person in media and marketing. So if you get a chance later this evening, please scan the QR codes in the networking area and you'll be eligible for that. Cool. All right, so since we're talking about resilience and building change, I figured let me start with a personal testimonial on what this means to me and many people in this room. So I built my career in investment banking. Amazing place to work. Made so much money, traveling the world, no wife, no kids. And you feel invincible, bulletproof. Nothing can go wrong, right? And you don't take advice from anyone, right? Because, at that point, I'm in my late 20s and I've got it all figured out. I can afford anything. I can fly anywhere. Like, why should I listen to someone else? And so I decided one morning, I'm going to start my own company because that's what successful people do, right? And it's easy. And there's no limit to how much you can earn when you start your own business. And most importantly, I don't need to put in a leave request, ever. 2 weeks after registering my first company, COVID happened. And I went from having this, call it a top billing type lifestyle, to no salary. 0 salary, 0 income. And that went on for 12 months, give or take. So for an entire year, I had no income, no salary, no anything. In those 12 months, I withdrew my retirement fund. I cashed it out. Something you should never do, by the way. It's terrible. I maxed out some of my credit cards. I refinanced my home loan because I decided to buy this amazing house before starting a company. Don't ever do that. It's a terrible idea. I made all the mistakes you can imagine when it came to cash flow. And most importantly, I realized that I didn't actually have support. Because you're working in a bank and this big corporate structure, you've got an HR and an IT team. Something doesn't work, there's a guy who resets your password. And I'm the IT guy now. Right? What's going on? I didn't sign up for this. And fast forward 6, 7 years and we're in a really good place now. But the lesson that I learned was you have to know how to adapt, to be resilient, and most importantly, how not to find yourself in that position in the first place, right? I know everyone sitting in this room has had multiple, what I call near-death experiences. I see many of you nodding and saying yes. You know what that's like, right? You're sitting there thinking, do my kids really need to go to a school where they learn French? Do they? Some of you are laughing too aggressively at that, so I'm worried. And that's the kind of conversation that we really want to start with these BizTalk series, right? Let's face it, we're tired of seeing these Instagram, social media highlights of businesses and entrepreneurs that are serially successful. Somehow they never fail. They're bulletproof. They just have this magic formula. When in reality, that's not the case. And through this evening, in the next 60 minutes or so, you'll hear from real businesses, real people, having authentic, organic conversations, sharing case studies like I did with you today. So to help me kick off, without further ado, a man who needs no introduction, the CEO of Capitec, Graham Lee. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
So Graham, it's always a privilege and a pleasure to chat to you. It's always authentic, organic, and very impactful. So I really appreciate you joining me up here today. I hope you enjoyed my story as well.
Loved your story.
So Graham, you know, Capitec is a perfect case study in itself of resilience, surviving through economic cycles, constantly innovating. But I want to draw on business banking in particular. Take me through how you and the team and all the talented people that work with you extracted that DNA into positioning business banking as this partner to support all your clients to be resilient.
Sure. So before I answer that question, it's probably worth noting that I have worked now for Capitec for this year roughly 100,000 years. And so maybe there's a fair bit of what I say which is, you know, quite specific to the experiences that I've had. And maybe it's not apparent from the outside, but over the years, I've made quite a few mistakes, and there have been lessons there. There have been some things which we've done well as well, and there's also some worthy lessons there too. So I'll try and share them, but please don't imagine that for all the fact of what you might see in the media now that it's been a smooth ride, because it hasn't. There have been many lessons that we've had to learn from our mistakes and take forward to the next. And we're in this wonderful position with business banking, is that for 17 odd years before the wonderful team from Mercantile came together with Capitec and we built Capitec Business, we had 17 years of making some mistakes that we were able to share. So I think the first thing was 25 years ago, we started really just with one simple idea that was different, which was put the client first, genuinely. Put the client first and make everything about the client. It's very easy to say, but actually quite hard to do, particularly hard in instituting it in every decision you make in the organization. We then followed that up with a second, which is just to keep it simple. And business banking for us wasn't a step forward in chasing the market. It was obvious that businesses needed what our personal bank clients already have, which is simplicity, that core banking delivered at scale with just the accessibility that is needed, the simplicity that's needed, the affordability, clearly, which is needed, and the personal service, which means understanding their circumstances. None of those things are genius in themselves, but the relentless adherence to them over the years, over and over again, the discipline of always sticking to your fundamentals, I think is the most important lesson that we've learned that takes you through any time, good or bad. And we brought that to business banking. And I think what we can share in those lessons is some of those disciplines that we've learned and brought to our lives in every aspect of the business that we run.
It's really powerful, Graham, because you touched on an important factor that I know many people, you know, in the audience will resonate with, which is versatility at a time of scale. So when you're a startup, things are easy. You're agile, you risk, or there are risk frameworks as they scale and become much bigger over time.
So, I mean, clearly the shape of risk changes as you grow. So when you're really small, and particularly in, let's call it survival mode, the risk is about frequency. They happen all the time. They're small to a big company, but to you they might seem massive. But also the frequency is really high. There's a high cadence. And as you grow bigger and bigger in scale, the frequency of the big risk, or at least the ones relatively big to you, changes. They become less often, less frequent. But the impact scales with the scale of your business. We had a system error on the 26th, which I won't go into too much more detail about, but when we make a mistake, it scales to 26 million clients because of our scale. So this is a really powerful thing on the one side. It is very impactful and a negative on the other side as well. So because of that tail risk, because of the scale of your risk as it scales with your business, you need to take an entirely different approach to how you think about risk. And I think one of the mistakes that we see with some of the businesses we bank in the owners is they're still managing a growth stage business with the risk mentality of a startup in that survival mode. And that's a serious mistake. I love rugby as a source of metaphors. So bear with me for a second. But the analogy for me is rugby is defense and defensive systems. So resilience and management of risk really comes down to discipline. And in rugby, the small scale, the survival stage approaches, the analogy is the individual making the tackle. When in that moment, it's just about the individual, their gut feel for the circumstance in the moment, their ability to bend over properly, get the forward momentum, put their head on the right side, and all of those things which, if you don't watch rugby, is meaningless to you. If you do watch rugby, it is. But it's all about the discipline of that one person in the moment and how they perform the action. And that's you running the risk management of your business in an early stage. But as your business scales, it's similar to scaling that defense to the entire team and scaling it from one tackle to an entire 80 minutes. And so it becomes much more about the system and the discipline in everybody sticking to the system over and over again through the entire 80 minutes. So to manage your business as it scales, you've got to really think in mechanisms. Good intentions don't work. Mechanisms do. Everybody who works for Capitec, by the way, has heard me say that like 10,000 times. It's up on my wall. And the mechanisms are writing it down. Write down what you're going to do. Write down what will happen if your biggest supplier fails or the costs double. Write down what you will do in each circumstance and start to think about how you translate that into systems that survive you not being there, into how you train and onboard people, in how your technical systems work, and how your processes are documented. And that's the risk framework of a scaled business compared to the intuition of the small business owner.
You know, I love the sports analogy, Graham, because, and I'll share it with everyone here. The one way that I've been thinking about risk over the years in our portfolio of companies is like a cricket team. You know, you can be a really good T20 player, go out and smash boundaries and get a quick 50 or a quick 100, but once you become a test player, you can't be playing those shots, right? And you can't be, you know, going out with that kind of mindset, that risk mindset to take on risk. So it's very pertinent what you're saying about how your mindset needs to shift and you need to have the support around you to call that out as well.
Look, I've only got one sport, so I'm really going to struggle to latch onto the cricket thing. But that's not exactly what I'm saying, in the sense that you can still hit the boundaries, right? You can still hit the sixes. And if you think of business banking in the last year, of how much we've grown our business banking book, it's grown to 30 billion rand, it's now 25% of our entire business, and it's going to scale. But we didn't grow by lowering our standards. We grew by knowing our clients better, and I think that's translatable to every business. You grow by understanding, or when you understand your risks well enough, not by pretending that they're not there. But you can still play the game.
100%. Now, in the South African context, we spoke about hitting boundaries, but there are many companies that sometimes struggle to even score a run for many overs at a time. And we have in South Africa a combination of external and macro factors that are amplified given that we're in a frontier market. Interest rates, currency volatility, FX, a whole lot of things. How would you suggest businesses think about managing this risk when there's so much noise and it seems like this avalanche of information every single day where you just can't keep up and you can't almost diversify away everything because there's always something new that comes up?
Yeah, so every single year, just before we've released our results in the past, goodness, it feels like a decade, some other major event has happened. This year it was the attack on Iran. So it occurs to me that there is so much that's going on that we all have to deal with. You have to deal with. It was power and it's water shedding and March, and whatever tomorrow's one is. And isn't it terrible? Isn't it just all terrible? Then we've got a choice now, which is to either curse the darkness or to light the torch. You can focus on those things like energy and that you can't control, or you can focus on the things that you can. And we choose to focus on the things we can and to know that we are going to win despite the challenges. So in terms of focusing what we can, making sure we know how to run our business, where the money is, what the cash flow is. We know our numbers the whole year round, not just when it comes time to do the taxes. It is understanding the unit economics. It is planning for scenarios. All of those we can control. We can assure against the events that will take us down. We can plan to mitigate the ones that won't, and diversify our business models and number of clients and places that we operate. And everybody else can do that too. But ultimately it comes down to not accepting that the difficulties of the circumstance are going to take us down and planning so that they don't.
I want to draw on scenario planning, Graham, and sensitivity analysis. I know maybe something you'd love takes you back to your past life in credit perhaps, but let's talk about the importance for businesses, all businesses, to stress test different scenarios. Maybe you have concentration risk with a key supplier. Maybe an interest on your main loan goes up by 2%, and all of a sudden it squeezes cash flow. Talk us through just philosophically how businesses can put themselves in a space where they stress test the right factors and they stress test the factors that make the most impact on a regular basis.
So firstly, do that. There's very little I can add to that. I think just, what we see, and I've sort of found it in myself over the years as well, is it's sometimes quite hard to look at the bad scenarios because you desperately don't want them to happen. And of course, they're the ones that you need to look at most. So I think it's just that honesty with yourself. There's nobody standing on a stage that can tell you more about the scenarios that can plague your business, or successful when you grow fast, but you grow faster than your capital, people, etc., can stand up to, or the negative. Nobody will ever know those better than you, but you do have to have the courage to look at what can go wrong. And that's the first step. Once you do that, the rest will follow.
Yeah, basically, Graham is speaking to me here. You don't keep tapping your credit card until it stops, right? You're like, oh no, there's an error. Maybe I ran out of cash. Graham, I've got to ask you, those two letters that I know everyone is fatigued hearing, which is AI, right? But I'm not going to ask you a generic, which AI model do you enjoy using? I want to have a look behind the curtain and find out, from the Capitec perspective, how are you utilizing AI as an entity to not only unlock productivity for the talent, the incredible talent you have, but also make the lives and experiences of your clients better?
So AI, Gen AI specifically, it is very exciting, but it is just one more set of tools. It's a very powerful new set of tools, but still a set of tools. And like any set of tools, I like to think of it as a bit like a lightsaber. A lightsaber is very powerful because we can switch it on, but the first thing you can do is cut your own leg off with it if you're not careful. So for us, the first thing was the realization that this new set of tools is not going to be the last. And rather, you build an organization around being able to use the next new tool and the next new tool. And that starts with people. The purpose for us of this tool is making our people more effective, not doing the thinking for us. And that's something I very much like everybody, especially my children, to remember. The second is it doesn't replace your strategy, doesn't replace ours, certainly. So sharpening your strategy to be able to use the tool is important before you simply spray and hope that Claude or Gemini is going to solve the problem for you. And then just be deliberate. So in terms of how we're now applying that, we've divided up the four most important domains that we can see in terms of affecting our business and funded them. So funding means money, software, technology, and human capital, of course, making sure that there are four independent groups of people who can take an area forward. First area is cybersecurity. So for us, probably all of us, but particularly as a bank, one of the things which GenAI has done is it's changed the nature of how easy it is to be a criminal and how easy it is to be a really effective criminal. And it's narrowed the window of response time. So the difference in time between when a vulnerability was spotted and when it's exploited has narrowed to hours, even minutes. Therefore, since they can use the tools, we need to use the tools earlier and better than them in order to make sure that we are more secure than everybody. And so cybersecurity is the first area that we have funded with the very best that we have and the most. And that then sits entirely independently of governance. Now that sounds immensely boring even to myself. But making sure that when we use in the right way, both with respect to people, but also data and access to the world, because we protect people, we protect people's money, and we protect people's data. That's the safekeeping job that a bank does, and if we don't do that, we've got nothing. So the governance set of people that we have is to put in place the right guardrails to make sure that everything we do is correct. We don't cut off our own leg with that lightsaber. The third is making sure that we take everybody along with us, the bottom-up approach. Making sure that in all of our human systems, so how we hire people differently compared to what we used to, because the job that they're coming to is different. How they're onboarded, how we train them, what a goal plan for someone is in terms of planning what work they do. How you measure success is different. So you change all of your human systems and of course provide them with the right tools and training to be able to thrive in a world of AI. And that's the bottom up, and then you transform the whole company. But that's not enough, because at the same time we then also identified some critical areas that we can transform completely. Throw away the documented processes, set fire them and start from scratch, because the world looks so different with this tool set that we can do it entirely differently. So we've identified a couple of critical business areas that we've had engineers redesign from absolute scratch. And that includes some systems. We've taken a massive chat support system, for example, from a US company that we've used for several years that wasn't quite fit for purpose. It didn't support our strategy. And we've managed to build an entirely new one by ourselves that does save costs, but that was never the point. It now supports our strategy, and we're able to do that. So we make sure we're fully funding all four of those areas.
That's an incredibly powerful way to look at it, Graham. And as you're speaking, I was just thinking, my only advice or only comment on AI is please stop using ChatGPT to make posters and send it to people. All right? They look terrible. But Graham, the last time you and I had a conversation, we spoke about your branch rollout. You actually, very different to many financial institutions that are scaling back on a physical presence. As an entity, you're increasing physical presence. So how does that balance with using AI effectively, but not using AI to replace that human touch and feel?
So the long story is 25 years ago, when the founders, Michiel Leroux and Renstas and Gary Fourie and a few others started Capitec, they started walking every part of the country, the streets from Sandton to Soweto and everywhere beyond, to determine what stopped people banking, because we already had an incredibly sophisticated financial sector. And there had been so many banks that there was actually an amalgamation of them. There was no lack of products or banks, and yet people still didn't get served. So the question was really, why not? And what they saw was, firstly, it was just too complicated. Everything was too complicated. You had 27 different accounts to choose between, and you certainly had to fill out a lot of forms. But also, if you didn't choose the right account, then you probably were going to get charged too much. And it was very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. So that lack of simplicity actually excluded people, even if they would have been served. The second was the bank shut. They weren't where people were in space. someone, for example, on a mine shaft in Rustenburg, who got out of the ground at 5 o'clock. There was no branch near them, but also, even if there was, it shut at 3 o'clock. So they also were inaccessible in time. And then when that miner walked into a branch, and I actually saw this with my eyes, actually, a different bank, not ours, the miner walked into the branch and all of the seats were covered in plastic because the branch manager didn't want his furniture dirtied. So what Capitec, all of those, as you might imagine, were the things which excluded people from banking. I'm going to come back to the AI question in a second, by the way. We'll get there. And so Capitec became the antithesis of those four things. Simplicity in everything we do. Simplicity to the point of intuition, easy to use, easy to understand, and it is in everything we do. That lack of respect showed to that miner with the plastic seat switched round to the personal service that you always got, with someone who stood and smiled and welcomed you in because it was our privilege to serve you, regardless. Affordability is an obvious one. Making sure that it was affordable to everybody, but also equally. I think nothing bothers me more, but I think most of us, than somebody else getting the good rate and you not. And that was true throughout. So affordability is not just having the good value and the good cost, it's having it free and fair to everybody. And then, I'm finally coming to answer your question. The accessibility is being where your clients are, not where you want to be. So it's very easy to have a branch and fill it up with bankers in Sandton, but maybe not so much in Prieska. It is very easy to have an ATM close to the cash supply network, but less so in Springbok. But the promise of being accessible, the promise of accessibility means being where your clients are. And when your clients still need to be served with another human being, then clearly we have to be there as well. And that's what is behind our branch strategy. It's not a branch strategy so much as just fulfilling that promise to ourselves that we will stick to those four fundamentals. So when our clients need more people in Jazini, we open up another branch in Jazini. And when our clients still need cash at the far end of Tabazimbi, then we will put out more cash machines. It's that simple. It's not even a choice for us.
You know, Graham, you spoke about support and being at the right place at the right time. Many entrepreneurs in this room, myself included, know that running a business is lonely. Entrepreneurship is very, very lonely. Take me through the Capitec business bank strategy on the ground to help support people as clients and kind of not just from a financial perspective, but also just be there for them over and above financial products.
So maybe the starting point to share with you is we don't have a target segment. We're not looking at either on our personal bank a group of people and say that those are our people, or from a business perspective saying we want to bank that type of business or that size of business. Our approach is very much one of saying what we do for banking, personal and business, is we provide core business banking. And we focus just on that and doing that better than anybody else. And then making sure that those four fundamentals come through to make that core business banking exceptional. And then anybody who wants that, wants the simple and the accessible and the affordable and the service that comes from a real relationship, whether big or small, whether you are big now already or whether your bigness is still going to come in the future. If that's what you need, then that will serve. What we don't do is then try and do the really complicated things. Not because they're not needed, but it's because they're not needed by many, and that distracts us from doing the focus that's required from doing the core very, very well. So firstly, that's our approach. The second is that in providing those services, it's not so much about providing a product. It is building up our relationships and our knowledge of each other. You can call it data or you can call it knowledge. It is both. Now, in the good times, so that we understand each other well in the bad times. It's that relationship that takes us through when things are difficult. And I mean, I've often heard it said that banks are very easy to find when I don't need the cash flow, and very hard to find when I do. And that there is obviously an element of truth in that. And I mean, all we can do to that is apologize and try to be better and put ourselves in your shoes. But equally, if you put yourself in our shoes, when we know each other well, it's easy to then stick together through the tough times. When we start the relationship when things are working, it makes it easier to stick by you when things stop working. So that does work both ways, and that's what we are trying to bring, both in terms of the people that will bring to you and bring the personal service that is our promise, but also the systems and mechanisms so that even without that one individual as a person, the entire business is designed to support you at scale. And then I suppose just a couple of personal reflections for me. In terms of building that relationship in the good times, that is Grant, our CFO, and myself, we were in Hong Kong a week and a half ago. And the reason we're in Hong Kong is talking to investors, both people who invest with us. Roughly 10% of our market cap actually is invested through Hong Kong, but also people who don't. And the reason for that isn't for today. It's not actually even for me and Grant as individuals in 5 years' time. It's for the next CFO and CEO in 10 years' time, because those relationships need to be built in order to be available when it's hard. A few years ago, there was a short seller called Viceroy who wrote an article and put out some information which was designed to drive our share price down, obviously with the purpose of profiting as a short seller. And in that day, when we had 600 investors on a call, in that day, the last 10 years of work, the last 10 years of relationship building came to fruition. We would not have made it through that as elegantly had we not put 10 years of relationship building during the good times. And I think that's a general lesson. You work on all of your relationships, both inside and outside. And then in terms of the support structures that you need to get through, the single most important support structure you have is your own people. And I think what gets people through the difficult days is purpose. So, pressure drives a sprint, purpose drives the marathon. And when people understand the value of the work they do and why it's important, when they understand why they're there, and at Capitec, one of the most important leadership principles we have is lead with the why. That purpose becomes the mast that you can all tie yourselves to in the storm of a crisis. And that can also not be built in a crisis. That can also only be built in the years beforehand.
Always a pleasure, Graham Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know many of you will have questions. We'll take a Q&A session after everyone's had a chance to chat. But up next, I have someone really exciting to join me up on stage. It's a brand I know you're all very familiar with. I'm too familiar with it. Costa Capitos from Gelato Mania. Please give a round of applause. Thank you so much. You need a mic? Okay, let's get Costa a roving mic.
I am quite loud as well, so.
So I think while Costa's getting a mic, just a quick overview. I had a call with Costa last week, and he was kind enough to give me an inside scoop on some of the new. That's probably my best work tonight, right? On some of the new flavors that are coming out. So hopefully it'll also let you guys in on it. But Costa, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thanks, Koshiek.
Let's start at the beginning, the genesis. Take us through the story. It's such an incredible story.
Sure. So we're turning 20 years old this year. It's a remarkable milestone for us. There was so much, Graham, from your conversation that I picked up on, and looking back at our 20 years, a lot resonated. So Gelato Mania started 20 years ago by my parents out of a basement in Willowbridge Shopping Centre out in the northern suburbs. And yeah, 20 years later, we've got 15 stores across 2 provinces in the country. My siblings and I, we started hearing about gelato and all the different flavors in Italian. I can only speak Italian when it comes to fruit flavors and anything to do with gelato. We heard that they're on the dinner table, and our journey in that was holidays, was weekends. When all my friends were going to Plet for December, I would go to Camps Bay. I could see the beach, but I was sat behind an ice cream fridge. So we've come a long way, and there's been a big drive from our parents to go out and study. So we've all gone out and studied, and now all 3 of us have, myself and my sister and my brother, have joined the business. And we're looking to not make the mistakes that everyone else sometimes makes when taking over a family-run business, doing the opposite of growing it. So pressure and purpose, it's driving us to continue growing it.
It's such a phenomenal story. And, I promised myself beforehand, I'm not going to use gelato, sorbet, and ice cream interchangeably, right?
You can.
Okay. Many people are thinking the same thing right now. Phenomenal business, but it is somewhat cyclical, an ice cream business.
Yes.
And we spoke about it before the event as well. Take me through how you've put in place the strategies and structures to become, call it counter-cyclical, or perform well throughout the year.
So I think it's great to be able to sit here 20 years later and tell you all these nice things, but I think that there's a very big realization that, when we started, so the first store was our store in Greenpoint and our second store in Amarnas. You've got 2 stores. If anyone's been to our Amarnas store, you're right on the seafront over there. You're so exposed to the elements. There's days where you sell 1 ice cream. And so, to talk about, cyclical nature and weathering that storm, the winters in the first couple of years was really, really tough. And I think that what we've done now is that we're at a point now where you've got stores in different locations. So you've got stores in shopping centers that when it's raining outside and the wind is blowing in Cape Town, and people go to the shopping centers. And so you may not sell an ice cream in Sea Point, but you'll sell lots in Canal Walk. And so it's about managing that. And I think certainly for us in the last 3 years, moving over to Johannesburg has been a very nice experiment, and we've learned a lot. So everyone, you would think that during school holidays, we get busy. That's certainly the case in Cape Town. In Joburg, you get quiet because everyone's down here spending time on the beach. So understanding that as well. And I think it's just about understanding your business really well, but also gritting your teeth through some really tough times.
Yeah. And, for the people that don't know, you're a chartered accountant. You
Yes.
have a finance background, and you're a finance director in the business. How does those 2 marry? Is it a completely different ball game, the textbook numbers, running it in the business?
So it's, you leave varsity and you think you know everything. And sure, my dad's caught me so many times where he will know the exact calculation, right? I'll go and spend 5 minutes doing it. He'll give it to me off the cuff. Yeah, that's the answer over there. And I'll spend 5 minutes doing it. And then I'll say, oh, this is the one. And he'll be like, yeah, I told you so. It was the right over there. So I think, trying to marry the theory that you learn, but also the business experience, it's quite tough. You have to sometimes pull the handbrake on that CA part of you inside of you. So that's raring to go. Where's that capital budget? What are you doing? Why are you spending so much money on a store? And then also let the other part of you, which is the entrepreneur side, which is understanding that, okay, putting a couple of neon wings in a store, which might cost you a pretty penny, does actually make sense in the long run, even though the accountant's saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it's about trying to marry those 2, and you have to sometimes lean a little bit more to the one side and a little bit more to the other.
Costa, we spoke about you managing macro risk, right? And one of the things you mentioned before was logistics and getting, product to shops, etc. Take me through how you have to be able to respond so quickly, so dynamically in your business, and some of the risk frameworks that you have in place to kind of soften that impact.
Yeah, it's certainly tough, and I think that as we're growing, and you need to try and grow to be a bigger business. We all want to be bigger businesses, but you need to keep the ideas as to what's made you to get where you are there. And I think being a small business, you know, I joke that our board meetings are on a Sunday around the lunch table, because that's all we're there. You know, we'll jump on a phone call and you need to make decisions quite quickly. And I think that, well, sometimes I'm the one that wants to add all these layers of corporateness, if you want to call it that. You actually have to strip it down sometimes and make tough decisions quite quickly, but sticking to principles. So I don't know if I'm quite answering your question, and I apologize if I don't, but it's kind of having those principles, but then knowing when you can make them quickly and when you can't.
So more art than science, right?
Yeah, you know, I read this lovely thing sometimes. It was, and I might digress for 30 seconds, but Coca-Cola, when they did their whole, when they went over to, they made a new Coke and then they went back to the old Coke, and their sales after going back to the old Coke shot up to the roof. The Coke CEO at the time said, we weren't that stupid to do this, but we weren't that clever to do it either. So I think you kind of land somewhere in the middle. It is an art sometimes. Sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you also get it right.
You know, you speak about being dynamic and adjusting to different changes, preferences. I want to bring it back to ice cream, right? Everyone has a favorite ice cream flavor, I hope, in here. And now you're seeing, let's say, Dubai chocolate.
Yeah.
It's massive now, right? It's everywhere. How do you incorporate some of those new flavors, new preferences, but also stay true to, hey, my favorite is Rocky Road, and I don't want to change, right? Do you like A/B tests? Do you sample? Do you get like a little testing pool?
So it's, look, I think we've got the benefit of having quite a large selection in any of our stores. I think the smallest selection we've got is 16, which allows us that when you go to one of our stores, you know, even if we change 2 flavors a month, there's still 14 that are there. So I think that we play around with flavors the whole time. We want to give people what is new, what is trending, but also, you know, a flavor like, for example, stracciatella. Now, stracciatella is a cream with chocolate chips. It's not high up on anyone's list unless, you know what it is and you're coming in to get it. So you want to keep those, you want to keep the classics, and we've had some flavors that have been in our fridge for 20 years that haven't moved. But then you also incorporate in the new ones, the Dubai chocolates, the Biscoff, you know, flavors that are absolutely shooting the lights out, but you know, you're balancing that between new and old.
Do you feel like sometimes people need a much deserved break and then you can kind of re-inject it after a couple of months?
Yeah, so
Be a little bit clever with it, you know?
So I told you when we spoke, flavors are like seasons, and I know it makes no sense. You know, Snickers can be on a great run. So we've got a delicious Snicker flavor, can be on a great run, and then all of a sudden it stops dead. And you're thinking to yourself, you know, okay, it just stopped dead. Now, instead of bogging yourself down to try and understand what it is, you pull the flavor, and luckily we've got a catalog of over 75 flavors that we can pick from at any one time, and pull it. 3 months later, you reintroduce it, and all of a sudden it starts taking off again. And you know, we could spend time trying to understand it. I don't think we're ever going to get to it, but there's a season to it.
That's fascinating. So looking forward, I know you have a ton of stores in the pipeline, rollout plans. Without saying too much, I mean, what does Gelato Mania look like in the next X amount of years?
So I think that the one nice thing that I learned, you know, from my studies was trying to be quite prudent. And what I'm struggling with is trying to grow the business as much as we can, but also trying to grow it sustainably. So trying to put the systems in place that we can do that. And I think that it's about trying to find the balance between those and growing sustainably. You know, you don't want to be at a point where you've overreached your means, because then the whole thing is, you know, you've already done it for nothing if you're going to close shop in 5 years' time. So what I would say, it's continuing our growth trajectory, knowing, being very purposeful where we open, how we open, the stores that we produce in, the flavors that we produce in. We don't want to lose that element at all, but we do want to be able to reach more people, more areas, and, you know, bring gelato closer to you.
And you've done that. It's everywhere, right? And I love it. So, Kosa, any advice you would give to all the entrepreneurs in the room, people who have walked this journey as well? Any business advice on weathering the storm? Things that you lean on when things get tough?
Koshiek, I think that, yeah, I mean, I certainly don't feel like I'm old enough to be able to dish out advice to anyone. I think that one thing that I was thinking about when Graham was speaking, I think that everyone has to realize that sometimes what got you there isn't what's going to take you to your next destination. And I think you've got to try and find where that point is. And you've got to, I think, latch onto other people, chat to other people, try and involve other people. You know, certainly being a small business, it's difficult growing when you grow from very small. And there's a lot of benefits to being a small business. But I think that if you want to continue growing your business, there comes a point where you've got to change. And it's a struggle. There's a lot of imposter syndrome because, you know, it's been working. And now what's working maybe isn't working anymore. So I don't know if that's advice. And I certainly don't want to feel like I'm dispensing any. But I would say certainly what got you there might not take you to the next point.
Yeah, that's an incredibly powerful piece of wisdom to leave us on. But thank you so much, Costa. I think
Thanks,
it's an
Koshiek.
excellent conversation to have. And I just wish you all the success. I'll
Thank
be
you.
sampling all the flavors. I promise.
Thank you. Thank
So
you very much.
Thank you so much. That's good. Excellent. Okay, so up next, we have the Executive Head for Business Banking and the Business Support Centers, Rian Kloppers, and he will be taking you through all of the really cool stuff they're doing over at Capitec. Rian.
I was telling the marketing guys that this slot is going to be a waste. I didn't get the dress code. My pants are not short enough, and I don't have a buckle. Graham used all my speech, so you know I'll have to make up on that. And after Costa's impactful story, you know, I'm not sure if I can do any better on that. And then you guys got this view here at the back, so you're not going to listen to me in any way. But we're going to try. I think that's the reason why we wake up every morning. Costa's story. Every morning we wake up, not a billboard, not a PowerPoint. Every morning we wake up and we say, how are we going to grow an entrepreneur? How are we going to create employment? We know it's not going to happen by government, it's by the people in this room. And how can we make a meaningful difference in this incredible country of ours with all its challenges and all its drama? I certainly personally would rather be in the southern point of Africa than be anywhere else. And you know, someone once said that in Switzerland, everything works perfectly well, but there's no opportunities. In South Africa, we've got our dramas, lots of opportunities, and we need people like you to obviously captivate that. Maybe it's a good start to just say where business banking came from, our journey. So 6, 7 years ago, it might be around about there, Graham, 6, 7, it might have been more. The Capitec Group thought that there's a small niche bank, a business bank, that was looking with some potential to buy. They made that purchase. The people coming from that bank was ready to rumble and ready to go, and very, very quickly we were put into the bunker and said, you're not going anywhere. You're going to go into hiding. So that you can build us a bank that can scale, that can build capabilities, systems, get the right people, go and build that, and once you've built that, then you can come out and you know, you can make some noise. So 2023 came, we said we're ready to rumble. They said, you go back to your bunker. You can change your name. You can change your name to Capitec Business. But no above marketing, you keep quiet. You're not going anywhere. You've got still work to do. All right, we went back. 2024 came, and they said, right, we're ready to raise our hand. We're ready to go above the marketing. We came with our pricing approach. All our products were ready. And we will say, right, we can proudly say this is where we're standing this evening. But through that journey, while we were hiding in the bunker and developing what was required, it was on those 4 principles. And that is where Graham already mentioned it. Simplicity, affordability, accessibility, and personalized service. Now, I don't know who has been, who are in corporate, who have been in corporate, or is in marketing. Those 4 things look really cool on a PowerPoint slide. Really looks nice. But to get it into practical terms, that is not so easy. And that is why we were hiding away a little bit. And the way that we put it into the practical piece was really from a simplicity perspective, was to say we're going to have one account. Do you need to have different transactional accounts, make them different colors, call them different names, and yet it is there to accept a payment, and it is there to make a payment? Do you need all of this? And we said we're going to have one global biz account, whether you're big or whether you're small. We then said we're going to have only one pricing structure. Now, I know all of you are Capitec clients, but you must have heard from friends that you have a different package and a different color and a different name, and it's a bundled offering. It's an ad valorem. It's an ad valorem ad valorem. It is a package executive ad valorem, and you can have 32 different packages, and you actually do not know what you pay. And we said we're going to come with one pricing structure. We then said we're going to have one set of product suites, whether you're big or whether you're small. Why is an overdraft reserved for a certain client, but not for another one? Why is a commercial property loan reserved for one and not for another one? Why must it be when it gets to a certain level, no, this division will look after you? Because they know how they will work it. And they work with their own mandate, they work with their own structure, and they forget that I've got another side of the business, and you've got to look at me holistically. So we said, right, tick, after we've got all the capabilities and processes, the simplicity one is ticked. We then came to the affordability one. We are fairly confident that we can say that we are the most affordable business bank across all types of clients, whether you're big or you're small. Because to Graham's point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate around that. And that leads me to the billboard dilemma. So 2 months after we launched our new pricing, billboards went up. Marketing guys always think they're a little bit more clever than everyone else. And they said, we will save you up to 50% of your fees. 2 months later, we got a fancy letter from a fairly large legal company from one of the competitor banks. No names need to be mentioned. Saying that they believe we are misrepresenting the facts, and we can't put it on a billboard. Obviously, highly regulated, very concerned. How did we get this wrong? Surely we must have made our sums correctly. We went through all that drama. We checked, we said we are fairly comfortable that we can make that statement, because the marketing guys also said up to, could be 10%, but it was up to 50%. But that was not enough. We took we took 6 clients from that particular bank that we onboarded in the last 6 months, big and small. And we ran it on the models, and that is where the concern came in. Because on the one client, their fees per month was just over 1,100, and we came in at 200. The second client, slightly bigger, came in just under 5,000. Our fee came in at 800. There was a really, really large client, fee structure per month, 11,500. We came in at 2,500. So, of course, the bank was right. We did misrepresent. It wasn't up to 50%. It was as high as up to 90% of savings. We're the only bank that proudly publish our merchant fee rates, big or small. We publish it because we know we're competitive and we can play. For those that use our cash devices, previously, bulk cash is not just a fee thing, it is a security thing. And that was reserved for the rich and famous, the big bulk operators. We are currently giving big and small the same rate that our large corporates will get. 19 cents processing fee with insurance, with the pickup on bulk deposits. We are the only bank that has aligned our transactional fees to that of the personal banking. Completely aligned, and then I don't know who came up with that, Graham. I think it was a few clever ones to say the structure that we had previously was a little bit complicated. So let's dumb it down. Literally, you all saw the ad in terms of the children, 1, 2, 3, 6, 10. So let's make the fee structure in a way that everyone can understand it. Our staff can explain it to our clients, and our clients can remember it. So literally, I think somewhere you also saw our fee structure. One rand from a Capitec to Capitec, 2 rand to any other bank, 3 rand a debit order, 6 rand for immediate payment, and 10 rand for a withdrawal at the ATM. Whether you're big or small, it doesn't matter. So on affordability, we said, right, we ticked. Accessibility, it's really, really easy to join the Capitec family, to open an account, free access to our app and online banking, easy to use. I must ask, who has been a client of us 3 years and longer? My sincere apologies, because there was a stage as we built this bank, 3, 4 years. The fact that you are still here just shows you how loyal you are to us. But I'm sure you can sign on now and just see the leaps and bounds of where we have progressed. We've got a full set of products, lending products, whether it's an overdraft, a medium-term loan, commercial property, residential home loans, merchant loans. We've got the full suite of products, investments, forex, payments that we believe 95% of businesses we can quite comfortably serve in South Africa. So we say, right, accessibility, we've got that one ticked. And then the personalized service. We've got 20 business centers around the country, looking after our medium to larger businesses. Also to have that local representation, eyes and ears on the ground, that is served by our relationship bankers, high touch, on the premises, always available. And then we've got the relationship suite in Johannesburg that serves 90% of our clients. That is not a call center. Those are bankers that we can place at any given point in time at any of our 20 business centers. And they are bankers that when you call, they will answer you by your name. They will have the last engagements that they had with you. They will know what the product suite is. They will know everything about your business that you can have a fruitful discussion, because I am sure your friends, not you, because you're all Capitec clients, will phone and say they don't know who to speak to. They don't know the last story. You must tell the whole storyline over and over again. And around that personalized service, I think we really got it right. Our structures are incredibly flat. Decision making is very quick. I've got to tell a story. Graham was yesterday in Johannesburg, and I was walking past to my desk, and here's the guy on the whiteboard busy doing, I don't know what it was, process planning or something. And I was just like, give me any corporate. And it's not a Graham thing, but because the structures are so flat, decisions are made so quickly, changes can be made so quickly, and it is always with the client in mind. So personalized service, we got that ticked. So we stand here today, incredibly proud of the journey we've reached, but with huge humility, because every day we're learning, every day we're trying to improve, and every day we're just trying to put our head down to try and serve you better and better every day. So in conclusion, I think for the clients that's already banking with us, I saw Gavin here, I saw Mandy here, I saw Morgan here. Thank you very, very much for all your loyalty, even through the online banking days 3, 4, 5 years ago. I saw a few clients that's in that process of moving. You made the right choice, and thanks for entrusting us with your growth path. And then, obviously, there's a few Blue Bulls supporters in the crowd, the slow ones. That has not moved yet. It's okay. We know you will get there. Give us a try. You've got absolutely nothing to lose. And really, really just thank you for everyone to be here. And as a final note, bubblegum is my favorite. Cheers. Thanks.
Okay. So it's time for some questions. I know some of you have burning questions. I'm going to ask Graham and Rian to please come on up and answer them and help field the questions. We have some questions from social media as well. This is being streamed on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we know the people on social media don't pull punches, right? Because they're not in the room. You can ask anything. So, one of the questions, while the mics go around, I'll kick off, that came through was, with everything getting more expensive, what is your advice for businesses to stay profitable? Graham.
Come back with Capitec, number one. It's a very old-fashioned answer, but it's still the truth. You've simply got to know what your unit economics are.
Yeah.
And then focus on where you can leverage that and optimize clearly. But it can't start without the knowledge of exactly how your own business works.
Rian?
Yeah, I think, exactly. Knowing the detail on each and every item around that. I think crises sometimes helps. I think a lot of you, through COVID, yes, it was tough times, but you sitting here, and I think a lot of your businesses have actually kind of reformed, changed. So sometimes crises, just to relook at all the nitty-gritties and the margins around that, and then of course bank with Capitec.
Okay, we can type that into the chat. Bank with Capitec. Okay, cool. Let's take a question from the audience. Any hands? Any burning questions? Okay, we have a question. Yeah.
So I'm part of the PR team.
Okay.
But obviously we're trying to encourage entrepreneurship in South Africa. We need more entrepreneurs to create wealth, to create jobs. But where do you take that step? I think because it's been quite difficult for people who are freelancers, solopreneurs, suddenly have that initial growth stage. How do they know when to take that first step from a solopreneur with a personal bank account to a full-on business banking package?
So can I switch it around and ask you, why does it matter?
I suppose as you take on more people, if you're at the stage where you're taking on more people, you need something that's that you have better administrative oversight over than a personal bank account where
Sure.
your business expenses are going to be intermingled with your personal expenses.
Sure. And I think that's really the point, that it's when you need, right? So what the entrepreneur account is intended to be is something that you can just get started instantaneously. You can start to use your point, to separate your personal bank from your hustle as that hustle starts to become meaningful. So it is there to be quick and easy and free. Because it is, and to start then to accept payments and have those payments be recognized as a business as you grow. And the time when you need something more than that is when you need something more than that. So what we're not here to tell you is you must upgrade in this way, or we will push some services you don't need. When you do start to need to pay your employees in bulk, that's the moment when you start to need funding which goes beyond the funding for the stock in the next few months that's available more in that entrepreneur space to something which, for example, commercial property, a big deal where you develop. But it's when you need it. It's not about a product, it's not about an account, it's the services that you need at that time.
Cool. Thanks, Graham and Rian. Okay.
Thanks, Rian.
Who's going to win the World Cup? We can skip that question. Maybe they were in the wrong chat, right? That might have been the group chat.
Springboks.
Okay.
I only have one sport, like I said.
You only have one sport in code, right? Okay, this is a really good question, and it's a tough one. So, if you could solve one challenge for every South African business owner tomorrow, like instantly, what would it be?
Sure. I think skills, eh? I think really people. I mean, that is what makes it tick. And I think it starts at the very, very early days, you know, through the whole school system, the way of upbringing, you know, the way of ownership, the own of accountability. You know, I think it's people that makes it work. You know, technology and all of those kind of things, you know, will continue to evolve, but I can't have this with Costa, you know, through an AI or through a system. Nothing can replace this, you know. And even if we have to look at the banking environment, other than Capitec, obviously got the best people. You know, it's hard to find good people.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with Rian. Skills are so important, and of course the education, which is foundational to it. If we could solve that, it would create incredible value. But mine would actually be crime. So I think regardless of what's being stolen, whether it is your life or your opportunity, whether it's corruption or the crime that steals your phone from you, and that was your ability to communicate, all of those, I think, are stealing our opportunities for people and opportunities for our businesses. And even education is impossible to get right. Even skills development is impossible to get right when you are living in fear. That's our biggest challenge. And if I could solve that and with a magic wand, I would. But we can't. But we're certainly not going to solve it by ignoring or to pretending that it's not our biggest issue. And so we need to be very conscious and work together to solve our crime problem.
We have a hand up at the back.
Thank you very much. So business banking is all about relationships. It's about advice-led, it's about intimacy, and it's about relationships at the end of the day. So if we think about the last 12 years with Gerrie growing, if my calculations are correct, the Capitec share price with roughly over 200,000%, what is your process and thoughts about scaling the Capitec business in the next, hopefully, 10 to 15 years for yourself as the leader of the bank on a relationship and an intimacy basis while still keeping the low-cost model that Capitec wants to, both in personalized and business banking?
Sure, I mean, it's a really fabulous question. And as you might imagine, there's some sleepless nights in that for me. So first of all, let's call it the generic answer, is all of us are thinking and acting in at least 4 different timeframes. So of course, the immediate timeframe that you are not just strategizing but acting in is to protect and grow what you have today, and all of the parts of the business that we can't lose, because losing our core, and that includes the scalability and low cost, would be a dramatic problem. We of course accelerate the businesses that are going to contribute to our bottom line in the next 3 to 5 years. The ones we've started already, but will start to scale now. We're already working on those which will have the bottom line impact in 5 to 7. We're incubating those, and those are starting to take off. And planning already for the 10-year from now businesses. And planning doesn't just mean hoping, it means already putting the capacity in place. hiring the people, to start writing the business plans, to start then implementing the first POCs for the businesses, which will only have a bottom line impact in a meaningful way in 10 years plus. We have to do all of those things at the same time. Now, in terms of how to do it and build different business models that still stay true to your fundamentals, I think really comes down to people, because it's not a strategy that accomplishes that. And it's not one person or even the group of people in the management structure. It has to be inculcated into every single person. So I'm really talking here, of course, about culture, but culture is decisions, if you think about it. So culture is firstly built by decisions. Every time you make a decision in line with your fundamentals, every time you make a decision in good times and in bad that you stay true to your principles, you reinforce that culture and you build it. But more importantly, to answer your question, though, culture is also how you get the right decisions. So when you're able to bring a group of people together and align them not just in the direction of your strategy and purpose, but also on what's fundamentally important in terms of your values, then that group of people, when presented with the same data set, will come to the same answer. And that means you can scale decisions.
Evening, Graham, Rian. You guys have got 54% market share in 18 to 35s in personal banking. That's the future entrepreneurs of the country. To what extent do you see those people opening businesses, business bank accounts? Because logically, if they're banking with you personally, that'll be the default, you'll hope. But to what extent are you seeing that activity? Because I think that's a message that South Africans will want to hear, is youth starting businesses.
I think the very purpose of that entrepreneur account, it is to make it easy, but it's to make it easy for everyone. We don't segment on age. But by far the biggest uptake is in the young. And if you think practically, employment in the future is unlikely to come from government. I think the capacity there is largely taken, and if anything, it may get smaller. If you think of big corporates, employment in the future is unlikely to come from there. There is a constant drive for efficiency and cost efficiency and headcount efficiencies. So the future of our employment is business, is small business. Small business is growing to be bigger businesses. And everybody knows that, including the youth who are less likely today than to find a job in a corporate or in government. And so they hustle. And so you can, I think, take the most positive view of the story, is that if you go to any part of South Africa now, particularly those places which you might think are the hardest hit or with the least opportunity or the least employment, are in actual fact the places that give me greatest optimism and confidence, because the energy and the entrepreneurship and the enthusiasm is massive, because it has to be. And that's where you are seeing young people of all ages, but young people, particularly in that 18 to 35-year-old, using an entrepreneur account, opening up more than one, starting a hustle, starting a second, starting a third, learning from their experiences, and making real lives for themselves as solo entrepreneurs. And that's very, very exciting.
Can't be more practical than that.
That was the best answer you had today. Yeah? So that's it, Graham, Rian. Thank you very much. Round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Koshiek.
Okay, and that's a wrap. Thank you very much for attending the first BizTalk event for 2026. We're going to be doing this across the country for the next few months. And if you're in your city or someone you know, please invite them to these sessions. We'd encourage you to please network in the networking session and the breakout room on this side. If you enjoyed the session, please feel free to post from the event. You don't have to do the cheesy LinkedIn stuff like I do all the time, #leadership. With BizTalk, tag the team, etc. And if there's anything that any of the team can do to help you, particularly the business banking team, please reach out, please connect. The Western Cape team is here, as well as the whole suite of bankers. Everyone's on hand and here to help you and to help your business grow. So thank you very much for tonight.